Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. On November 28th, 2017, Living World Season 4 kicked off, and with it, it brought 3 releases. The first episode, Daybreak, for Living World Season 4. It also brought a new fractal, the Twilight Oasis, and also a raid, the Hall of Chains. Both Episode 1 and the fractal I have completed. Hall of Chains I have not yet completed. I've attempted the first boss and she's a lot of fun, and I can't wait to get my teeth into the other bosses. But for this video, I'm going to be giving an overview on the first episode, Daybreak, and just go over a couple of story steps and give you an overall review of my thoughts and impressions on it. So let's jump right in. Starting us off with the first season, the very first instance, Eye of the Brandstorm. This was a very fun and exciting way to start off a season, and basically it starts with you contacting Timey and Ritlock. You meet up with them, you talk about where Krakatorrik is, and Timey informs us that Casimir and Marjorie are watching Krakatorrik, and that he's somewhere up in the mountains. Not the Shiver Peak Mountains, but the mountains near Dajka. And hint, hint, if you look at your map now, there is a altered brand. So you can see where Krakatorrik is right now. But she tells you that, you kind of wrap things up there. And then Timey walks around the corner, you have a little conversation with Ritlock. And then Timey notices a brandstorm, much like the brandstorm that was shown to us at the very end of Path of Fire. And so being the hero, Ritlock and yourself, you guys traveled to the Amnoon Oasis to try to help everyone. And along the way, you have a bunch of crystals that you have to break and shatter to free the civilians because they got trapped in the brand. Overall, the mechanics are really fun, especially the achievements. There's an achievement to A, evacuate everyone, and B, make sure that no civilians trapped in the crystals are corrupted. And I had a lot of fun doing that. I managed to get it on my first try, so it's not super difficult, and I can imagine it being even easier if you go in with a group. So once you progress closer and closer to Amnoon, you gather people up. I've noticed that if you have picked for Path of Fire, if you picked your allegiance with the priestess or the priests of Cormyr, the priestesses will be there to assist you. But if you choose an independent Amnoon, the cavalry will help you. So far, no Awakened have been seen, and I believe I did it on a character who picked the Awakened to help them. There aren't any Awakened around, and it kind of makes sense. So I'm glad that they did that, but it also kind of feels like, oh, I just wish they were Awakened. Nevertheless, you meet up, you go inside, and you start to kill off some of the higher ranking branded who are causing the chaos. And you trickle through. Also, you meet up with Canuck before you go right in. And Canuck's always a treat and a fairly good fighter. So more NPCs makes it a little bit easier. And once you have finished up with the crystals, you go to the center of the town, or the center of the city. And you have to fight Case. And you end up killing Case. And he was working at the outpost, and I'm pretty sure he was the one who was more of the coward. So part of me felt like it was like, I didn't want you to die, but you were kind of already like not on good terms with us. So it's like, weighing the scales. But overall, you kill Case, and then you go even further into the center of Amnoon City. And Aureen is there, and she is fighting a wyvern. The boss fight itself was somewhat long. Not saying that's a bad thing, but it did feel lengthy. And at parts, I got annoyed. It was definitely a very well-designed boss fight. I don't know. I was in a mood and I got annoyed really quickly. But I'm pretty sure after playing it back a couple times, I'll feel much more at ease with the boss fight. So Aureen is there. She's fighting this wyvern. The wyvern ends up landing, and you have the boss fight with the wyvern itself. The model, I thought, looked kind of strange. I don't know. Was I the only one? I kind of felt like it was a bit too fat. I don't want to say fat, but something felt a little too fleshy about it. But it could just be that it's new and that I'm not really used to it. But that was just a little tidbit I wanted to point out. So after you kill the wyvern, which was a very well-designed boss fight, Aureen lands and you have a little discussion with Aureen. I mean, you don't have a discussion because she can't talk. But she does show you a very interesting vision. And the vision is of Faranor, which is located in Istan. And hint, hint, spoiler, spoiler. I mean, if you made it this far, you've already spoiled a couple things. But for Living World Season 4, the very first episode, it takes you all the way to the Isles of Istan. I was not expecting this at all. I was not expecting Istan. And I was not expecting for the world map itself to be stretched in a Living World episode, but it was. And I'm completely fine with that. And I hope that they continue to do that. I'm not expecting huge expansions of the map, but it was certainly nice. Because it's just fun to scroll through a giant-sized map. And once you have finished Eye of the Brandstorm, you head over to Istan and you start doing some searching, not on Google, but through people and through reconnaissance and deeds. Overall, the next portion is Under the Stars, and this is the map exploration portion of the Living World episode. And I have to say, I really, really enjoyed this step. I don't know why, I just got hung up. I just said really, really twice, and that always annoys me. I apologize. But I did not mind this story step at all. I thought it flowed very well. I really enjoyed going to the Astralarium. For someone who did not play Nightfall, I had no idea of what happened at the Astralarium, so it was a great catch-up tool for people who only play Guild Wars 2 and want to learn a little bit more about Guild Wars 1. I still have to go back and play Nightfall. Still beating myself up over that, but let's let that lie for a bit. But talking about Under the Stars, overall, it was exploring the map, it was getting some more information about the Astralarium, and getting some more information about the Sun Spears on Istan. Once you are able to finish the heart, you enter an enclave of the Sun Spears, and here you meet First Spear Hakima, and you have a little discussion about her, or not about her, but with her, and she's basically saying, oh, I know all about you. Everyone knows about you, Commander. And honestly, at this point, who doesn't know about us? But the conversation continues, and you start to talk about Joko. And she points out that someone who is not, I don't want to say posing as Joko, but someone who's claiming to be Joko is wanting bounties and is assigning bounties. And the commander is, of course, on that bounty list. We offer some remarks about the bounty, and then the conversation continues and transition over to Faranor. Basically, the player character asks how to get to Faranor. And Hakima tells us that there is a Sun Spear, known as Sun Spear Zaim, who is the only person who knows the directions to Faranor. So being the commander and on a mission, we leave this retreat and we head off to try to find the Sun Spear Zaim. Next up, we have Champions Dawn, the third part in the first episode. And I must say, this one isn't super long. It's fairly short, sweet, and to the point, but it does offer some quality story. Nothing, I wouldn't say like earth-shattering. A very interesting character to show up, and it's on screen right now. Koss ends up showing up. So basically, this starts out with us going after Zaim. We find out that Zaim has been taken by Saida from the Sly Corsairs, and we have to get a token from Koss showing a sense of honor and pride, so we can kind of trade. We can make a I believe it's a parlay, a trade for Zaim, and we can give Saida this coin. All in all, this was a very fun boss fight. It wasn't super challenging. It was just a nice little break. And I really hope that they continue to do these, because I'm one who actually really enjoys smaller story instances with not too much going on. I like kind of having a break in instances where It's still an instance, and there's still dialogue and story. It just doesn't have to be like 30 minutes long or so. It can be like 5 to 10 minutes, something on the shorter end, and I really enjoyed this. And overall, it makes the episode feel much more grand than if they were to just leave this out. But nevertheless, the story called for it, and I'm glad that they put it in. That's basically Champions Dawn. Next up, we have Convincing the Corsair, and I'm deeply apologetic. I sadly do not have story footage of it. I just completely missed it, and I'm already recording, and it's late, and so I don't have enough time to go back and play it again. So I have some open world footage of the surrounding area. So basically, in this story beat of Convincing the Corsair, we travel over to the Corsair ships, and we meet for a parley. And the captain that we meet is Saeed the Sly, who is the head bitch in charge of the pirates. And you have a conversation with her, and you talk about where Zaim is. And she basically says that she captured Zaim and handed them over to the Awakened. And that does not settle well with you, and you're very pissed. So what you do is that you offer up the coin for Zaim. Basically, the game plan is that you give her the coin, or the coin of cost, that's how they're connected families. So you give her the coin, she says that she will take you and present you as a prisoner. But before you do that, you first have to collect a very strong grog, and this will be used to put the Awakened in a drunken haze, and to make it easier for the player character to escape and to get Zaim out. So basically the main chunk of this story step is you going around the island, not necessarily the island, but you go around this little Corsair outpost, you collect some things, you go a little bit to the Astralarium, and then you come back and you present your ingredients, they make the grog, and then you are ready to go to the Morden Crescent Hall to get handed in so you can get Zaim out. It's like a very Mission Impossible-esque situation, but spies and all that stuff, subterfuge is nice. And that is Convincing the Corsair. Moving on to part 5. Once again, I am deeply saddened that I do not have any footage of this, and especially this being a very important, pivotal moment of this episode, it makes it even worse, but I hope my audible, verbal summary of this will be adequate. I'm going to try to keep this concise because a lot of stuff happens in this story instance. So you are handed over to the Morden Crescent Hall. This is where they keep their prisoners. And the warden in charge of this place is known as Warden Amala. And you're handed over. And at the wrong opportunity, wrong timing, Timey telephones in. She buzzes you and she starts talking. And the warden notices and she knocks you out. I just like to give a quick praise to the camera work that they did, because it was beautiful, and I'm really sad that I don't have any footage right now to show you. But you get knocked out, and then you wake up in a cell, and the camera's all hazy, and it's a first-person view, and it's very cinematic, and I loved it. So you wake up in a cell, and you wake up in a cell right next to Zaim. You're in a cell, and the main focus is to get out of this cell. And another little cherry on top for this episode and just the sheer quality. In this cell, each profession has a unique way of getting out of the cell. For instance, I was playing as a guardian on my first run. I had to summon a hammer of wisdom to smash the lock. One of my friends played it on a necromancer, and they had to summon a fleshworm, and then you teleport out using the fleshworm. And if you play a mesmer, you blink through the cell bars. Just another added layer of pizzazz and overall excellence, which I really loved. So you get out, you get your gear, and then you start making your way to the exit And it's a really fun mini game where you have to avoid the cones so the awakened don't notice you, and then you set off the alarm. A very classic style of content. I don't know, like in the older games where you have to be careful of not stepping in the fields and getting caught. I love that. So once you get to the exit, you get to this door, and then you stop, and you hear Tiny screaming, and I still get emotional talking about it, because Tiny was buzzing you in to tell you something very important, that she is being taken hostage, presumably by Joko. Voice actor was very similar to Joko, if not the same exact voice actor of Joko. It sounded like Joko. So she's terrified and gets me emotional, and she's trying to contact you for help, and she's being taken by Joko. Hearing this, you flip out, you go into the room, and you kill Warden Amala, and you get back your communicator, and you start talking to Tiny, and then Joko just takes the communicator out of Tiny's hand and starts talking to you, and you're like, you bitch. And so it's fun. It's very wonderful, and I loved it. So once you have your conversation with Tiny, you go out of the jail and you fight off the awakened, and then you reconvene with Canuck and Ritlock because they were coming on their way to Istan. So you meet them, you tell them that Tiny is in trouble and that she is being taken to Farinor. Also, Aurene shows up, and she's not super important. She's just like this added bonus, and it's always nice to see teenage Aurene. But basically, Canuck, Ritlock, Zaim, and the commander are off to Farinor. And now on to the final part, the last instance, the first city. And I'm just gonna recline a little bit in my chair because this is a long instance filled with riveting twists and turns, gasps, and clutching of the purses, which was always great and is always great. Oh my gosh, where do I start? Okay. So it starts with Canuck, Ritlock, Zaim, and the commander going into Farinor. You found an entrance, and just wanted to quickly point out, like, Farinor is on the west side of the island of Istan, but you're on the east side. It was weird. Anyway, you end up in Farinor, and your main objective is to save Tiny and to confront Joko. You do this. It's kind of, it reminds me of Bastion of the, no, not Bastion of the Penitent. It reminds me of a Wing 3 of the first raid. Escort. It reminds me of Escort. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. It really reminds me of Escort because it's a one-shot path filled with kind of minigame-esque situations. You're killing Awakened, you're killing Abogas, and you're killing Undead. And there's this one portion where there's a bell minigame-esque where you have to time it to, like, jump across the gaps before the bells smash you. Really fun platforming. And once you do that, you continue on into Farinor. This place is massive, absolutely nuts. And once you get further in, you end up seeing Branded around. And that's one thing I was kind of like a little taken back at first, because I didn't notice it immediately. But after like a minute or so, I'm like, wait, why are there Branded here? Maybe someone in the comments can tell me down below, but there are just Branded being shot into Farinor. And there's these giant Branded crystals holding Branded elementals, and they come out and attack. They also attack the surrounding Awakened, which is always great to see. I love it when you see the animosity between different creatures and their dichotomies. So that was also great. So you continue on, you're killing Brandon, you're killing Undead, and you get to this next portion, which, let me just say, I did not see coming. Personally, I did not see coming. I know some people are like, oh my god, I saw it coming. But you get to this section where there's bone walls and you have to to continue on to save Timey. And so Canuck being Canuck's like, I'm going to set up bombs and blow this place up. He ends up literally blowing this place up. He's planting his little bombs, and they all end up accumulating into this massive explosion, severely damaging the infrastructure, and the top portion of the ceiling ends up collapsing on all the players. And out of nowhere, Bram shows up and just pops shelter. You can probably see this on screen right now because I'm doing my editing magic. And Bram's just like, I'm a dragon hunter now, bitches. And then Rox is there. I'm like, oh, hi, Rox. Rox's like, hey, I have frostbite. That's all Rox really does. And Bram's like, I'm back. And so is Rox. I was not expecting Bram and Rox to show up this early on in the season, especially in a location I am not familiar with, and especially with Far North, something so further away in distance, so far away from the Shiver Peaks. So it was definitely a shocker. Honestly, I'm actually kind of glad Bram is back. Try saying that 10 times fast. And I'm not angry at him. I think I've simmered down. Having an expansion without Bram and having a decent amount of time off from Bram's character, it really helped me. And I wasn't in a position when Bram first had his little hissy fit where I really hated and loathed him. I kind of understood. I'm like, okay, he's going through some troubles. Let's give him some time. But there was definitely situations where I was like, okay, Bram, you just need to sit down in your corner and cry yourself to sleep. I was never in that camp where I really hated him, so I don't think it was as much of a polar shift for me to go, I can appreciate you. I think it was natural for me to just go, you're back. I like you. Because I do genuinely enjoy Bram's character. I think he brings a lot of stuff to Dragon's Watch. I was about to say Destiny's Edge 2.0, but I'm like, we're past those days. So overall, Bram is back. I was definitely not expecting Bram. Even talking about it right now, I'm still slightly in shock. And then Rox is there. Frostbite's there. Also, I want to point out, Frostbite does not have a legendary border around his portrait, and I think that's criminal. We all know the best part and the best guild member in Dragon's Watch is Frostbite. Like, there's just no competition. I don't understand why the devs are not giving him his just desserts and his status that he deserves. I'm a little bit of a lover of Frostbite, if you couldn't tell. But Rox is back, Bram's back, everything's good. You continue on, they're talking about how portals are popping up all over across Tyria, which is even awesomer, because I'm like, oh my god, there's gonna be like events happening in the Central Tyria maps, which I am so down for. I would not be opposed to having an entire episode take place in Central Tyria. I think that's an awesome idea. Breathe some more life into the Central Tyria maps, please. Ugh, I love it. And I just love Central Tyria, and I feel like I love it even more because we haven't had as much incentive to go back in recent years with all like the expansions and stuff. But I wouldn't want to stay there forever. Like, I can deal with an episode and then let's go back to new stuff. So that was pretty much what happened with Bram and Rox. Next, you start to progress further. You tell Bram about the situation with Timey, and then Bram kicks into Big Brother mode. And he's like, we gotta get her back. And I'm like, yes, Bram, yes. I love the relationship, like the sweet relationship between Timey and Bram. It just, gives me the feels. And so the player character continues on, and we reach a portion where we have to do some crossing the wires and pressing of the good old buttons. And this wall is uncovered, and the secret layer behind it is revealed. And inside we have Timey and some awakened. I just want to quickly point out, there is a NPC with a mysterious I believe it's like mysterious person, mysterious. It was a mystery character. A mystery character shows up, and right away when I first played this, I'm like, oh, so this isn't Joko. Like, Joko's still in the domain of the lost. He's still kind of doing his own thing. And I really like the idea of Joko not being behind all this. I would love it if it's a different character. And you might also have noticed at the end of Oreen's vision that she showed us, there seemed to be a female and or different character at the very end. And you guys know those end shots are always the most informative and always the most crucial. And so even from that, it kind of planted the seed of, oh, this isn't Joko. And this just kind of solidified it even more. I will say that I'm not 100% sure that this isn't Joko, especially with Joko's voice coming up in this episode. It can definitely be Joko, or it can be a character who is really good at mimicking voices and or putting up disguises. And one situation that a lot of people I've heard with this theory is that it's perhaps Lissa. And I'm also one to enjoy that theory. Then again, it's also a theory. So, we have Taimi in this center of a platform. We have this mysterious character. This mysterious character disappears. We have the whole entirety of Dragon's Watch minus Marjorie and Casimir here, really upset that Taimi has been captured. So we go and confront them. Taimi is trapped in her golem, and her golem is killing her. Scruffy, how could you? Scruffy 2.0, you can leave. You can go home. Scruffy 1.0 was so much better. Can we just all be in agreement in that? Like, at least Scruffy 1.0 didn't try to kill Taimi. All jokes aside, Taimi is in peril. She is being suffocated by her golem, and we have to get her out. The only way to get her out is to disassemble Scruffy 2.0. And we do this by overloading him, and then we attack him. It's a very engaged boss fight, and there's a lot going on, and you have to be attentive at all times. Thankfully, I didn't, like, the very first time I did it, I wasn't, like, I don't want to say blown away. I'm just tripping over my words now. I wasn't overwhelmed. That's what I want to say. I was definitely blown away by the mechanics and the overall polish of the fight. I just wasn't overwhelmed, but there was certainly a lot going on. So just keep that in mind when you play it. After you defeat Scruffy, he is disassembled, and Taimi pops out at 6% health, if I might add. One, I guess, just question I have is that will Scruffy 2.0 just not work from here on out, or will Taimi quickly just attach the parts back to Scruffy? I really hope that she just quickly attaches them, because she just built Scruffy 2.0. I don't know. She could go through a period where she has to do a Scruffy 3.0. You never know. The developers might not like the design of Scruffy 2.0. I personally do. But I hope it isn't a thing where she's just not able to come around. I hope she quickly manages to rebuild Scruffy. And that is pretty much it for episode 1 of season 4, Daybreak. Now I'm just going to give my, just wrapping up my thoughts and my experience with this episode. Overall, I had a blast. And I really wanted to highlight a key feature, which is the length of this episode. This episode felt very lengthy and chock full of content and rich story without feeling like a drag. And that's definitely a highlight for me, because I am obsessed with this story. And I really think it set a precedent for the rest of season 4. And I really do hope that they can meet this quality every time. I know with season 3, there was a little bit of a drop-off with Cracking the Ice, but who knows? Some things could have just happened with development. But I really hope that they've learned from past mistakes, as they typically do. And I'm so excited to see what happens with this story. Also, side note, I hope Taimi's voice actress got a little bit of a raise, because Taimi's voice actress in this episode was tugging at my heartstrings. I was almost on the verge of like sobbing. I felt inside my chest tightness, and I'm like, I know Taimi probably isn't gonna die, but I'm like still like clutching my purse and clutching the edge of my seat, and I'm like, it was great. It was fantastic, and I love stories that can make me feel that way. And episode 1, for it being episode 1, it really just hit a home run on this. And as I have said before, just to echo what I've said in the past, I'm super excited for season 4 and for what ArenaNet has in store for us. Also, just a little plug, but a very not shameful plug. I have some links down below which will help people get into Guild Wars 2. You can do the free trial if you just want to try it, or you can buy Path of Fire and get access to Living World Season 4. Also, if you just have a free-to-play account and you still log in during these times, you'll still have that season unlocked. You just can't play it. It'll be stored for you. I'm like 99% sure that's what happens. So if you would like to use those links, tell a friend, get some people in game. And I'm so excited to be back. I'm so excited. I'm hyped. It's 9:30 at night. Probably not gonna sleep, but it's fine. And I will see you all in the next video. I'm sorry for this long ass episode, but I've enjoyed myself. And once again, thank you, ArenaNet, for this awesome season, or awesome first episode of the season. With that said, like the video if you liked it, comment down below about your thoughts on Living World Season 4, Episode 1, Daybreak. And subscribe for some more Guild Wars 2 content. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, everyone. Mwah.